The owner of the local bar was convinced that his bartender was the strongest man around. So he offered a standing $1,000 bet. The bartender would squeeze a lemon until all the juice ran into a glass. Then the squeezed lemon was given to a challenger. Anyone who could squeeze one more drop of lemon juice out of that lemon would win $1,000. Many people tried. None were successful. Nobody could beat the bartender's record. One day, a scrawny little man, wearing thick glasses and a polyester suit, said in a rather squeaky voice, "You know, I'd like to challenge the bartender." Everybody laughed. But the bartender took a lemon, squeezed it in his hand until all the juice ran into a glass, and then he handed that wrinkled rind to his challenger. The crowd's laughter turned to stunned silence as that tiny, scrawny man clenched that lemon rind in his hand and squeezed out 6 more drops of lemon juice. The crowd roared. The new champion was given $1,000. And then he was asked what kind of work he did. And the new champion said, "Oh, I work for IRS." Sometimes we feel like Uncle Sam and our state legislature squeezes us for every cent they can get. Nobody likes to pay taxes, but we all have to do it. People didn't like paying taxes during the day of Jesus either. In the gospel text, the Jews asked Jesus a very embarrassing question in public. They're trying to trap him. And so they say to Jesus, "Tell us what you think. Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not?" If Jesus said they should not pay taxes, they would report him to the Roman government. If Jesus said they should pay taxes, the people would be angry. They would be angry because taxes were as sore a point with them as they are with us today. Palestine was an occupied country. There were 3 taxes the Romans extracted from the people. The first was a ground tax. Every man had to pay to the government 1/10 of his grain and 1/5 of the oil and wine which he produced. Number 2 was an income tax, 1% of a person's income. Number 3 was a poll tax. Every male aged 14 to 65 and every female aged 12 to 75 had to pay this tax, which amounted to 1 denarius or 1 day's wage. The poll tax, this was the tax in question. The people did not like having to pay an additional 1 day's wage a year to the Romans. They resented this tax, not just because everybody hates to pay taxes, but because to a few of the Jewish people, God was to be the only king. To pay taxes to an earthly king was to admit the validity of his kingship and thus be an insult to God. Jesus showed just how shrewd he was when he said, "Show me the coin that's used to pay the tax." And looking at the coin, Jesus said, "Tell me, whose head is this on the coin? What's the title?" And they answered, "It's the emperor." In those days, as soon as a king began to rule, he would have his own coinage printed with his particular image. And that coinage was then held to be the property of that particular ruler. Jesus then said, "Give to the emperor the things that belong to the emperor, and give to God the things that are God's." Jesus affirms boldly that a Christian is a person with double citizenship. We are citizens of the country in which we live. And you and I are fortunate to be living in America. Earl Warren said, "I believe no one can read the history of our country without realizing that the good book and the spirit of the Savior have in the beginning been our guiding geniuses. Whether we look to the first Charter of Virginia, or the Charter of Massachusetts Bay, or to the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut, the same objective is present. A Christian land governed by Christian principles." He went on to say, "I believe the entire Bill of Rights came into being because of the knowledge our forefathers had of the Bible." To our country, you and I owe a lot. We benefit from all public services: law and order, fire protection, highways, water, education, Social Security, and Medicare. But we are not only citizens of this world. Our citizenship is double. We're also citizens of heaven. God is to be our final allegiance. God is our creator. By being in God's house today, each of us made a very bold statement. We are saying that we are seekers of God. We're telling everyone that we're here because we want to learn more about God. We're saying we're here because God is important in our lives. And we're trying to learn every day how to make God more and more a part of our lives. Jesus says, "Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well." All of us are theologians. Theology means to study God. A theologian studies, learns about God. And that's us. We all have a theology, a system of belief about God. And there are all kinds of theologies. There was a dog theology. The dog says, "You feed me, you pet me, you shelter me, you love me, you must be God." There's also a cat theology. The cat says, "You feed me, you pet me, you shelter me, you love me, I must be God." You have a cat living in your house. I do as well. So we understand this explanation. Leonard Sweet introduces a squirrel theology. And he goes on to say that squirrels are on a different theological plane than cats and dogs. He says squirrels are so good at what they do, they've generated a whole anti-squirrel industry. The manufacture of squirrel-proof bird feeders. If you've ever attempted to feed just birds and not squirrels in your backyard, you know that products designed to baffle squirrels do not always baffle them very long. Now, squirrels are not rocket scientists, but they use all their squirrely attributes to get to that prize. They dig in with their toes, they balance on precarious perches, they use their tails like an anchor. They use their front paws almost like surgeons' skilled hands. Now, the squirrel's tactics are not necessarily perfect, but they are very persistent. All squirrel antics are centered on a single-minded purpose. Nuts. Seed. Food. And because of that single-minded purpose, they find joy in every moment as though it is the only one that matters. Does your life, does my life, have a single-minded purpose? We're supposed supposed to seek God's kingdom first. That priority sets us apart. Apart from all other preachers. And apart from all those people who find the focus of their lives centered on getting more and more things. See, we're not called to be consumers of stuff. The goods and services that keep our economy afloat. We are called to keep discovering God's righteousness. We are called to keep finding ways in which God can become more active in our hearts and in our lives. We're to seek constantly what is God's intention. What is God's purpose for us as individuals and for our world? Oftentimes, squirrels will delight in going out on a limb. Confident in their God-given gifts, they are comfortable and unconcerned, perched on the tippy end of a tiny branch. 40 or 50 feet up in the air, clinging to a scrawny twig, that squirrel enjoys the view and the winds that ruffle its fur. Followers of Jesus Christ will oftentimes find themselves out on a limb. You see, what helps to bring in God's kingdom and what helps to reveal God's righteousness isn't always the most popular stance in our world. Seeking God's kingdom first may sometimes put us in a rather precarious position, causing problems where we work, within our family, within our own community. Now, squirrels are very intentional in their gathering behavior. You know, I sit in the little den we have and look out my window there in Ocean Pines, and I watch these squirrels, and we have plenty of them, crawling all around the yard, looking for nuts. They'll even pick up a leaf and look under it. They'll dig in the dirt. Have you ever watched a squirrel stuff his cheeks full of nuts? See, they don't pick up just one nut at a time. They stuff as many as they can in their cheeks. Now, Jesus teaches you and me that we're to lay up treasures in heaven. That says to me, we are to stuff our hearts full of God. You see, we are Americans, but we're going to always be Christians first. Seek first God's kingdom and God's righteousness. Norman Vincent Peale writes about walking by a tattoo parlor along one of Hong Kong's narrow streets. In the shop window, he saw a display of tattoo decorations. Flags, slogans, anchors, daggers, skulls, crossbones, everything you could possibly think of. The decoration that caught Dr. Peale's eye was the phrase, "born to lose." And he was curious. He went into the shop and he asked the tattoo artist if people really had that message, "born to lose," permanently imprinted on themselves. And the tattoo artist said, yes. Yes, they do. In fact, he said, not long ago, I had a man come in and wanted that phrase, "born to lose," emblazoned across his chest. Dr. Peale asked, why would anyone want to be branded with a gloomy slogan like "born to lose"? The Chinese man shrugged his shoulders, and then he said, before tattoo on chest, tattoo on mind. A profound thought. There's a tattoo on our minds long before it appears in the way we live. You know, it would make, and it does make, a big, big difference if we have the right tattoo on our minds. We are citizens of this great country, America. But we are tattooed as Christians. You see, you and I are needed for heaven.